Hi, thank you to the listeners of BIP Chat. It's really wonderful the way people contact us all the time and say, oh, well, I've been listening to this expert who helps in business. And it's really hard to sometimes find suppliers, good suppliers. We spend a lot of our time looking for great customers, but your business is only as good as the suppliers that you have. And they are so important. So BIP Chat is all about us, me, I should say, interviewing the experts that Thomas has spent 5 years seeking out, not just for their expertise, but also for the emotional intelligence and values they hold. And so BIP 100 is 100 business-to-business experts that can really help you grow your business. And you know that Thomas and I have got to know them very well. And today we're going to be talking to Iain Cox, Iain with 2 I's, Iain Cox. Iain lives in Hereford. He's got 6 horses, 2 dogs, an amazing life up there, has had an amazing legacy career in IT. But today we are going to be talking about a very important subject, which is around how are you protecting your business in order to protect your customers as well, the whole subject of cyber security. A very critical subject, one that can be so easily overlooked until you have a hellish fright. And it's been amazing preparing for this interview with Iain about his knowledge and also the impact he wants to have to save people from a vast amount of costs if things go wrong, and also a vast amount of stress that you can't really prepare for unless you have done the appropriate stuff in advance. So Iain, very excited to have you with me today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Penny. I'm delighted to be here, and hopefully I can shed a little light on the world of cybersecurity and technology and how it all comes together.
Yeah, I love that. I always think as soon as we say cyber, it all sounds almost like, oh, that's in the future. It's almost like a futury thing, isn't it? But we invested in an audit and making sure that we were secure. We have 100 clients, your data, information. How do we make sure that there are no breaches? And so we're a tiny business. So this is an important subject for small and large businesses. Before we start, I just want to have a little bit of a moment to talk about you and your career leading up to this point where you can provide this amazing wisdom. So just tell us a little bit about where you started and what brought you to this point now.
So I've been in technology for all my working life. A graduate in computer science a long time ago. And then I've been with some of the major consulting houses. I was principal consultant with IBM. I was the lead architect with Atlas Origin, an advisor to government while I was there. My last role, permanently employed role, was some 13, 14 years ago now, where I was European head of e-business for Wipro. I left there after a year and set up my own, at that time, enterprise architecture shop, delivering enterprise architecture to corporate clients, including people like First Direct, HSBC, some major insurance players, Liverpool and Victoria, etc. Then I did a lot of work as an associate with Gartner. So I have that very much corporate history, but I'm now very much trying to move to a position where I'm working with slightly smaller clients, not the major enterprises, but certainly SMEs, maybe the slightly larger end of SME. But what I'm trying to do now, we've all moved to the cloud, and we are all very exposed to the issues around cyber. We see it every day in the news, Marks and Spencer's, Harrods, Co-op, etc., to name but a few. So I was involved in a project with HSBC 6 or 7 years ago now, when I was part of the design team who built their new cybersecurity platform. And having left that project, I then became, I went and spent a lot of time cyber certifying, knowing, so that I have, I now carry the CISSP certification, which is hopefully the cyber gold standard. And I'm applying that to businesses and my customers. What I'm looking at very much is cloud environments in particular, but not only cloud environments. What I find is that today, a lot of the cloud vendors, and I include Amazon, Google, and Microsoft in this, they're all trying very hard and succeeding in locking customers in. And they're providing a great service, don't get me wrong. They are providing good services. But actually, it is possible to build your new stacks, your new applications in a way that enables not only cybersecurity, but portability between clouds. And for me, that is a gold standard to which we should all be aiming. Why? Because prices change. If you want to shift from one cloud vendor to another, you should be able to. It should be a commodity issue. And your security should not just be based on what that particular vendor has done and relying on them. You should have designed that security in. Gosh, Penny, that was a long explanation.
That's very good. Well, it is an important subject. And so I know you're very understanding of this. To a lot of people, this is a dry subject. It's, you know, some people love go out and sell, go out and market, make a noise out there. But actually, these foundations in a business are what gives the board, the business owner, the peace of mind. And I know the difference it's made for us since we have done that. So just going into sort of, because we hear of hacks, obviously we all hear of the ones you've described them, and they're big news. But for a smaller business, you know, a smaller enterprise business employing a number of people, maybe they've got 100,000 clients. Where is their vulnerability? What would be the thing that could happen to them that wouldn't necessarily hit the news as a major hack, but what else could be a threat to them?
Well, I'm going to give you maybe two answers to that. The first one is that when we talk about cybersecurity, we all think of it as a technology issue, an IT issue. The truth of the matter is that today, over 90% of all vulnerabilities are exploited through mistakes or issues made by employees or disgruntled ex-employees, or doors being left open or things not being put away. They're not necessarily directly technology. So that is one thing. The other thing is, I think we all do need to look at our technology hygiene and make sure we've adopted best practice. And I'm not going to go into that right now because that, what you said, would be very dry. But I think it is very well worth pointing out that the consequences for loss, and it will depend on the piece of legislation that applies, but you as a business owner or a board member may personally be liable for very significant fines. And this may be up to 1.42%, depending in some cases, of your business's global turnover. So actually, this is a really significant amount of money. And I think making sure that you're not going to be liable for those things. You know, you're not liable if you've done the right things and it still happens. You're then not liable. If you haven't done them, then you are. And I think it's a question of making sure we've got that hygiene right, embracing what good looks like. But one of the biggest problems I encounter in my conversations on a day-to-day basis is that I would say I haven't yet walked into a senior management team or a boardroom and had an adequate answer when I asked the leadership team, what are the cyber assets within your business? What are the things you need to protect? Very, very few people at that level actually know what folks are after or how they should protect those things. Within the cyber industry, we talk about defense in depth. And we also talk about building a cyber strategy which is proportional to the value of the assets. So I would argue that if you don't know what your assets are and you don't know what their value is, you can't protect them because you don't know how much you should be spending on it. For example, there is absolutely no point in spending £50,000 protecting something which is only worth 2,000.
So Iain, when you say that, and I like to get into the subject of these assets, I think that's really useful. What would be a scenario? What sort of asset would somebody trying to is that IP? What is it that they're trying to get?
Particularly the things, I mean, people will talk to you about a lot of them, but the things that they're actually after are things that can be monetized. So customer data, for one, and that's a particularly important one, as we all know, personally identifiable information, intellectual property, IP, assets which can be exploited and sold on the dark web, access to money, be that you know, I'm doing some work at the minute with one of the trading platforms, which is a well-known name, and on a regular basis they are losing quite a lot of money because people are having their portfolios hacked, and those portfolios are being destroyed, corrupted, stolen, etc. So there's a wide range of things which should be entitled assets, but we do need to think about them very carefully, particularly personally identifiable information, because that obviously comes under the aegis of GDPR.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, I mean, this is modern day burglary, isn't it? A lot of you're talking about that people can now do. They don't have to break through your front door or smash a window and come and steal your jewelry. And so there must be hundreds of thousands of burglars out there who are just looking for any leak, any way that they can, get in.
It's really quite significant now. As I'm sure you're aware, there are now hacker groups which sell hacking as a service on the dark web, and you can look at Russian groups, Korean groups, Chinese groups, and these groups all have fancy names like dragons and bears and so forth and so on, and they will, for a price, they will do a hack for you.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. So it all sounds terrifying, and it should. If you're listening to this and you're starting to think, oh God, and as you say, it's proportionate to what your assets are. Yes. So if as a small business you don't feel you have many assets, there's probably a very simple layer that you should put in that first of all gives your customers some sense of safety. But also ensures that you don't have, your business doesn't stop, that they haven't just been malicious, because there's malicious hackers as well, aren't there?
Yes.
What does it take? What is the sort of, I think there's something you said earlier. I think it sounds like with that 90% statistic, there's some training, there's some awareness in your own staff that needs to take place. Is that a starting point? How does it work when somebody works through this project with you?
I think, first of all, I would always say have an audit, know where you're going. 2, absolutely training. Make sure that your staff are aware what good hygiene looks like, what best practice looks like. That's not complicated or expensive, and it's done very easily. I think once you go on one step from that, again, not expensive, but important, is to put in some governance around this. So that it becomes conscious rather than unconscious. And I think that transition alone can really help people to understand what they need to be doing. And that can be applied even to a 2-3 man type of business. And it's not going to cost you a lot of money, but it could save you a lot down the road, because remember, it's not just the hack or the business interruption, it's what comes after that. It's the loss of reputation, it's the loss of clients, it's the recovery time. One of the recent IBM reports showed that the average corporate hack costs $4.3 million to recover.
Oh.
That corporate hack, that's
Yeah.
but the point is still stands.
And with insurance companies, because some people might say, oh, well, I'll be insured against that. Do insurance companies actually only insure if you have got a cybersecurity policy in place?
Yeah, I mean, your insurance will be completely dependent on, have you done things, have you got your good housekeeping in place, and the level to which that applies will affect your premium. So there is an upside to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I suppose, if I reported that I had been burgled at home, but I said that I never locked my door and it was just wide open to the town square,
yeah,
they wouldn't want to insure you, would they? And it's the same sort of thing. So tell me, you talked earlier, you mentioned about supply chains. So I could say, I'm okay, thanks very much. I've made sure I put security in cyber security policies and governance, and I've bolted the gate and all of that. But I know that you're also responsible for your supply chain.
Yes, indeed. So under a piece of legislation known as NIS2, Network Information Security 2, you are today liable if you are liable for ensuring that not only do you have security in place, but also that your supply chain has a requisite level of security in place. Because if you haven't, they are potentially an attack vector. They are a way into your business. And
oh, I see what you're saying. So somebody will come into you via your supply chain.
yes, yeah.
Oh, wow, that is really interesting. That is, and you can imagine every business has got people that they've entrusted. I mean, I suppose a very simple lesson, your accountant.
Indeed. I mean, just to tell a ridiculous but funny and true story, in San Francisco, there was one of the major hacker groups set up an attack on an insurance company. And what they did was they staked an ice cream van outside the building and said, free ice cream to anybody who can show us their badge, their business entry badge. And they took photographs of these badges, they reproduced them, and they walked in, tailgating people. And, that is an absolutely true story.
That sounds like something from Die Hard.
It does, absolutely.
So now we've all become, over the last 2 years, I mean, I imagine the acceleration has been a massive with us all using large language models, whether it's ChatGPT or whatever, when we tend to embrace. What is the impact of us all now getting so excited about AI and that world?
So I'm coming from the perspective of, one, a cybersecurity person, and two, a technologist. Now, I have to admit very openly, I use ChatGPT, Gemini every single day. They are great tools. However, they are potentially a vector for attack if they are not governed properly. An example of this is, not that long ago, the Russian network Pravda published millions of pro-Kremlin articles and pushed them out to the sites the LLMs use to harvest the data. Now, that wasn't a hack, but what it was a data poisoning attack. And that data poisoning skewed the output of the LLMs. And we have to be just aware of this stuff. And I would because of where I sit, I guess. But I would very much say that we need to embrace AI. Of course we do. But we also need to embrace it in a structured and careful manner so that we, again, have governance around it. We are aware of its huge possibilities, but we are also cognizant of what could go wrong if we don't check the data before we use it.
Yeah, I've actually fallen foul of that. I was writing a post and I wanted to put some statistics in.
Yeah.
And the data statistics they gave me were completely made up.
There you go. It's hallucinations. There you go.
Yeah, so I completely get that. So you've been really generous the way you've shared so much knowledge, and I always think it's really important. As a woman who likes to go into a shop and see how much a piece of clothing or a handbag costs, it's always really nice to have clarity about how somebody works with someone. So if there's somebody listening to this and just says, wow, you've really piqued my interest here and I feel a little bit vulnerable, I just want to have a cozy chat with you about that. Are you happy to do that?
More than happy to do that.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to talk to anybody. An initial conversation is completely free. It's not charged. And I'd be delighted to talk to anybody anytime.
That's really wonderful. I appreciate that. And how do you, I mean, this all sounds like a lot of people, I always think, especially in this sort of period when people are have some levels of uncertainty, they'll probably think, well, this sounds very expensive. So this process, it sounds like people can buy elements of it as they work through a process with you, from an audit. Let's start off with an audit.
So I tend to try and package up the individual bits. And the advantage of that, I think, is that it creates clarity for all of us. So that if I do an audit around a certain subject, or for example, I'm doing a piece of work for an Italian business at the minute who need to be, they need to be compliant under the Digital Resilience Act. So I'm doing a piece for them. I have just packaged that up as a single fixed price project. We all know what we're getting into, and we all know what it's going to cost at the end of the day. So there shouldn't be any surprises.
That is wonderful. So the thing I love about doing and introducing our amazing experts to people through this podcast is that we have got people who were, senior leaders in the corporate world with all the wisdom and expertise of that, and now the passion of actually helping directly, and also the cost saving of the fact that they are not employing millions of staff and having loads of overheads. And so it just seems like such a win-win. I very much feel that the consultant of the future is going to be the way that so many companies need to go to. I mean, the vanity now is how few staff do I have, not how many, isn't it?
Yes.
And to be able to work with somebody like yourself at this level and get that level of security is absolutely incredible. So you can contact Iain. Remember, that's Iain Cox through LinkedIn. Of course, you can contact Thomas or I to have an introduction. He's got a website, unlockmycloud.com. Iain is just a fabulous, you can hear the way he speaks, very calm, very gentle, very empathetic gentleman who knows a lot about a subject that's very critical to your business. So I hope we've in some way made some connections here for you so that we can help you to go peacefully into the growth of your business. And Iain, many, many thanks for everything you've shared. It's lovely the way you articulate. The reason when Thomas is looking for people, he's not only looking for skills, but he's looking for people that know how to articulate complex subjects to people that don't necessarily want to be involved in it, but know that they have to. So it's very exciting to have you in our community and to be able to introduce you to our wider network. So thank you so much, Iain.
No, Penny, thank you. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much for your time.